Hola, hola, benvingudes, benvinguts a un altre episodi de Casella d'Eixida.
Què tal, com estem? Soc Carles Palanca.
I Carla Rubio.
A veure, jo no sé com s'ha enclavat
I don't know.
en estos fregados ja, però anem a veure. Pots posar-me en context de lo que va passar ara mateix, Carla?
Que me vaig a desmaiar. No, que avui tenim un convidat molt especial.
I això ja ho hem dit moltes vegades, però
Però és que, o sigui, no m'ho crec.
jo no m'ho crec. Jo després d'esta estic per fer un drop de mic, però no de vacilar, sinó de dir, pues ja està, ja...
Xapen la paraeta,
Xapen la
no?
paraeta.
Que encara queden coses, que queden coses.
Sí, però és que això per mi és molt top,
Sí, sí que ho és.
perquè avui tornem a fer...
Una entrevista en English with English, en subtítols en català.
Exacte, teniu ahí en YouTube, li doneu ahí els subtítols.
Exacte.
I qui ve per així? Que encara no m'ho crec, jo.
Tom Brewster.
Tom Brewster de Shut Up and Sit Down. Anem a veure, Shut Up and Sit Down, per on comencem? És el meu canal favorit,
Sí.
punto, de Jocs de Taula. Fan coses molt divertides.
Molt divertides.
I
és que són
sempre,
molt bons.
i
Sí.
en molt detallat, sempre.
Sí. Pots estar d'acord o no en que... O sigui, en els gustos, vull dir.
Sí, però inclús així, encara que no...
Paga la pena veure el vídeo igualment. És
Sí,
com...
jo de bé, este joc no sé ni quin és, ni m'interessa en absolut, però jo vaig a veure el vídeo. Que és
Això ho fa
divertit.
molta gent dir, este reviewer m'agrada tant que vaig a veure què diu. Este joc
Me
no
té
m'interessa, però allà vaig. Home,
I-
jo he vist, de Tom Brewster, he vist la de A Thousand Year Old Vampire.
Ostres, sí, va ser molt
És una
bona.
review boníssima. Jo no crec que jugue a un joc de rol a soles.
En solitari, sí.
Mai, però la review és boníssima i vos la recomane de veritat.
Total, que bo, anem a preguntar-li un poquet, doncs, quin paper té, no, en l'equip, quines coses fa, com ha anat evolucionant totes aquestes coses que ha anat fent,
Exacte.
etc. Aleshores, jo crec que va anar un poquet per ahí.
Sí, del seu estil, de com...
Del que vol fer, també,
del
no?
futur, exacte.
No sé. i
De
que
què li
és-
agrada veure en reviews i no, perquè imagino que també s'inspirarà en altres. A veure
Sí,
què ens conta.
A veure què ens conta.
I tot això, si puc articular paraula, igual no puc. No passa res, que parle ell.
De l'emoció. I parla prou bé anglès. Té accent de... Esta broma la feia massa vegades, no? Ja està. No sé d'on és. És de Londres?
No ho sé.
Li preguntem a veure quin temps fa per ahí o igual...
Ho he pensat. Quin dia més bo està fent. Uf, pobre Tom.
Saps el que passa? Fa dia de falles.
Avui ha fet un sol. Increïble.
Bo, total, que això, que a veure què ens conta, vale? Anem a l'entrevista?
Sí, anem allà. So, thank you, Tom, for joining us today.
How you doing?
Hello, hi, how are you doing?
Good.
Fine.
We were discussing about the weather here. I don't know if we can discuss English weather or if that's something out of the
It
conversation.
is not allowed, okay?
Yeah. It's been miserable over here for the past few
Miserable.
days. So, I mean, it always is. So, I'm sure you have it luckier.
Yeah, well, you're more than invited to come by if you want. Here we have a festivity called Fallas, which is in March. Okay, so basically, whenever it's kind of sunny, we say, okay, it's Fallas time. Okay, it's like you feel like warm outside, and
Holidays,
that's it. So you're more than
Holidays
invited.
weather. Okay, so
Yeah, perhaps
Let's start.
Let's start with the
shoot. So the first one, I would like to know a little bit more about you.
Okay.
So talk about your background. So because did you study English literature? Am I right?
Yeah, I studied English at university.
Mhm.
I think at the time, like a lot of it, I found quite like frustrating and like difficult until I actually got to like my final year of uni when I started doing creative writing.
Mhm.
And it was the last module, the very last thing that I actually did was creative writing. And it was like, why did I take so long doing all this other stuff when I could have doing this? Like that was the part that I really enjoyed.
Mhm.
And there were some pieces that I wrote at the time that I think set off something that like kind of pushed me into this loop of like creating a piece of work and then kind of going like shopping for different ideas in
Mhm.
other people's work and then kind of bringing that into my own, which I think some people would probably call stealing. But
Inspiring, being inspired, right?
yeah.
Inspiring, yeah.
But I think that I was super preoccupied with this idea of like making things that were unique
Mhm.
or
Yeah.
original. But like that doesn't exist, right?
Yeah.
Everything is
Everything's
just
a
you know,
remix,
this-
right? Yeah.
Right. And yeah, we had this module where we started like picking apart texts and then incorporating parts of it into our own writing. And yeah, I think that's what got me started, like making stuff, I guess.
Okay. So did that help you to create audiovisual content afterwards?
Yeah, I think when you're less preoccupied about like every work being your like best thing ever, it makes the whole thing a lot easier.
And were there any particular kind of during your time at university, any particular topics that you liked, or particular style of writing that you lean towards, or was it anything in particular?
We had this really fantastic module on like 20th century literature where one whole section of the text was all about like fragmented narratives. So writing that was split up into loads of like tiny pieces, and you had to kind of rearrange it to work out what was going on. And I've always wanted to put that in a video, but I think everyone would probably hate it.
Well, YouTube is kind of the medium for that, right? Or
right, maybe, yeah. It's like I've always thought about like a choose your own adventure review, but I think that maybe is a bit too ambitious.
Amazing, okay. Amazing. And then I guess you're studying, you like board games, I guess, at that time of your life, right? And then suddenly, I don't know, you see somewhere that Shut Up and Sit Down is looking for an internship or something like that, and you're like, okay, let's try this one. How did that went?
Yeah, so at the time I was working for like an arts charity, like a gallery basically, and I was doing like curatorial work there, and I was wondering if I wanted to like get into the art world or if I was going to do creative writing. But then it's like you said, I saw the application for Shut Up and Sit Down and was like, why not? What's the worst that could happen? And one of my friends at university, a guy called Harry, who he's fantastic, he really pushed for me to go for it. And we made this video, and we made a video about the Game of Thrones board game. Okay. That was my my application video, and it's a terrible video. I don't want anyone to see it ever. It's the worst. But Harry was really great at that time because he was really encouraging, and he sort of let me get over that anxious hurdle of putting something like that together and putting it in front of Matt and Quinns, who I've seen every one of their videos, and they're so good at what they do. And I hadn't, at that point, I had never made a video of anything. Wow. I was like completely, I was learning it as I went. Like I need to learn the editing software, and I filmed it all on a phone and whatever. So it was a weird time, but it went well. But then, but straight away afterwards, so I made this application video on the Game of Thrones board game where I was really enthusiastic because I played it loads at university. It was like my way into board games. And then immediately after, they reviewed the Game of Thrones game and its expansion so negatively.
Yeah, I remember with expansion. Yeah, I remember very well. Yeah.
So definitely they can blackmail you with that.
That's right.
But I, as soon as I saw that video go up, because I hadn't had word back about my application, I saw that video go up and went, "Oh, I'm toast." There's no way. And yeah, that was a big topic in my interview, was like this idea of like, how do you work out, like, how did I feel about them reviewing something so negatively after I'd just waxed lyrical about it? I didn't really have an answer. My interview went really badly as well. But it's fine, I'm here now.
Exactly, and from there you can only go up, right? So
exactly.
So you started with the internship, so wearing a lot of costumes and appearing in a lot of videos in the shadows, and then you end up all by yourself doing your first video review. So you hit the button with that YouTube channel that has, I don't know how many subscribers.
So, like us, but in English.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In proportion, maybe.
Yeah.
So, how do you feel about it?
Yeah, it was a weird shift going from, because I was making those videos initially like with Matt and with Quinns and like working alongside them, and then suddenly it's the pandemic and it's like, well, it kind of worked to my advantage because it was like you've got to make a video on your own, and it was something I had to do, but now I've got to do it like right away. And it was really scary because I'd only really shown creative work to like close friends or sort of in places where nobody would ever see it, and so it was freaky. But we're really lucky to have an audience that's like so friendly and generous with their positive feedback. Like as soon as I put that video out, it was like there wasn't a single bad comment. Everyone was just really happy to see me make a video, which was great. And internally as well, because I think that the negative comments stick in your head more than the positive ones. And there were a couple, but it's fine because they get washed away by Matt, Quinns, and Ava,
Exactly.
who are they're so good at giving advice. Like Quinns has a really good way of framing every video that you make as part of this like ongoing process. As long as you're like learning something, then you're doing well. You're getting better at it. As long as you're making a video and you're changing something. So the act of making a video makes you better, but spending ages perfecting something is pointless. So Quinns is great for just being like, publish it, see what happens, and then do another one, and you'll be better.
That sounds like a great idea when you do your first creative work in front of 300,000 people. Like, yeah, don't worry. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But I remember seeing one comment that says like, I had to check if Tom wasn't there from the very beginning.
I agree. I didn't write it, but I agree.
Yeah, people have been really nice with that kind of stuff because I think I have such a, like it's so in my head what Shut Up and Sit Down looks like, and I didn't really see myself as part of it until very recently. Like, still when I reach out to publishers and stuff, I've been doing the job for a couple of years now, but still when I go to publishers, I'm like, I'm Tom, the new person at Shut Up and Sit Down. It's like, I've been doing it for a while.
But you know, Tom, it's pandemic, so we're still in 2020.
Yeah.
Yes.
Somehow.
That is true. We keep looping.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because that's to be honest, I've only felt like I've really started doing my job how I'm meant to be doing it now that things are sort of easing up a little. Like, now I'm actually playing games at a table with people. Like, for most of my job, it was all online. It was all digital. So that's really weird. Like, doing a job for 2 years and now it's like different. Now we can kind of film together again a little bit more. Yeah. It's like, oh.
I remember seeing you together for the first time. It was like, yeah. Light at the end of the tunnel. So you mentioned that this continuous process of learning and the way that Quinns frame it. So you see now back at your first video. And how do you feel about it? I know would you want to change a lot of things? That's a good sign, actually, because you learn, right? Or
yeah, I think I would probably change pretty much everything about it. I'd tear it up and start again. I think that the thing I'm glad about, the thing that I really like, is that my biggest problems with that video are things like, like the quality of the audio in the video, like the fact that I hadn't worked out lighting yet and all that stuff. But I think like I'm quite happy with what I put out there. Like, I think the core of it is good. And I think the only way I had that was having a lot of support and like a lot of like Matt and Quinns. Like, I was going to do, Matt did a video on a game called Ice Team. And originally that was meant to be my first review was Ice Team. But I filmed it 4 times and I binned every single one of them because it wasn't good enough. So when I say that Quinns is great at being like, oh, just go for it, there was a little bit of me binning, scrapping projects until we got the one we liked. But yeah, and I think it was a good review for me at the time as well, thinking about the pandemic and like games that you could play. And I made a few solo game reviews. And I wanted to think about that early on. Yeah. I'm doing it less now because there's less of a need for me to be playing them at the moment. Yeah.
Well, we're discussing on the intro about the
1,000-year
old vampire. Which
oh yes,
I love the review. I never played it, and I think I'm never gonna play it, but I love the review anyway.
We give it as a present to a friend of ours who's a lot into RPGs.
Oh, fantastic.
Also studies literature. Also does audiovisuals and stuff. Actually, the intro for our show is his, and he was like super excited. So he got it in the mail, and he was like, "Okay, I've been writing for the past 6 hours, just coffee and writing." And he's like, "Yeah, I guess that's how Tom kind of
It's definitely a good gift for someone who likes to write and can get into that like creative space. But then also it's a bit of a hard sell because it's like, I'm going to give you this game and you're going to be really sad because it's such a sad game.
It's super emotional. That's right.
Yeah.
That's a good thing about board games.
Yeah, absolutely. They can get you emotional. Yeah. Sometimes backstabbing, sometimes writing about 1,000-year-old vampires.
Yeah. Okay, so talking about your style and the development and how you change it, recently you wrote a thread on Twitter talking about how your videos have been becoming more fast-paced and shorter, but also talking about that you want to explore maybe longer stuff. How can you tell us about this?
It's tricky because I think that thread is like, I have this problem where I'm trying to make a video and I'm really worried about, the audience watching it and whether they're sort of bored yet. Because personally, I get really worried about like, am I being boring at all times? And making those videos is it's good for me because I can just cut out all the boring bits and it can just be just like entertainment central and whatever. And I think that's too much for some people. But I really admire people who make YouTube videos who can maintain a sort of like friendly energy where it's not like polished and got this sheen to it, and it's more conversational and chatty and friendly. And I think that I'd like to explore doing that. I've got some ideas for some features that potentially we're going to be able to explore that are more that. But then also I do think that I have much more fun making videos that are like incredibly direct.
We love them. But as a non-English speaker, I have to say that I have to check the comments to check if I missed any joke, and I missed, and I know other people too. So we comment the jokes.
Delayed transcription, it's called.
Yeah. Kind of.
Well, I mean, I'm glad that people are there to comment out the jokes that yes.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. They're very fast paced, and from the whole team, your style is perhaps the one that is, I feel, more native to more visual with a lot of jokes. It's more native to the YouTube kind of a style. It's like you find your own way of expression. Well, I'm not saying that Matt and Quince don't have their own. They have a very particular style, but it's not that aligned with YouTube, right? Like this.
Yeah.
Lots of cats and a lot of jokes everywhere. Yeah. So I don't know. How did you end up finding that identity? Were you inspired, of course, I guess, by Matt and Quinn's style, or any other YouTube people, or I don't know if board game reviewers or anything else?
Yeah, there's like a joke on the team that because I was a fan of Shut Up and Sit Down before working for them, I understand their format sort of innately. Like you know that bit in The Matrix where Neo gets that, like, he gets the thing plugged in and like he knows kung fu. They joke that's me with Shut Up and Sit Down videos, having watched them for years and years, and it's like I've finally got them. But then I love their work, and they have this very particular style. But yeah, no, I make stuff that's sort of more joke heavy, more fast paced, because I want to like respect the sort of the time of the viewer. But I think that it's also because I watch a lot of just YouTube generally. I think that's where that comes from. You're right that it's more like native to YouTube. It's a quality that I admire in some of my favorite YouTubers outside of board games. There's a cooking YouTuber called Internet Shaquille, and he makes these videos that are like, they have no fat on them. They're just straight to like, bam, 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 information. And he respects your time so much. And they're like a huge dump of stuff to take in, but you feel like you got a lot out of it. And I think that's always really exciting. And then I get a lot of that from TikTok as well. I don't use it that much, but I have my 3 siblings are like obsessed with TikTok.
That's
and some of the stuff
too addictive. That's too addictive.
Right, absolutely. But the way that it's addictive is because every video is like designed to just hook you in straight away. And there's a musician comedian called Drive45 who edits in this way it's almost like claustrophobic, because it's like it's confusing because there's so much crosstalk and there's so many things going on all the time that it wouldn't work if not for the format, if not for sort of that condensed video format. Sorry, that's a bit of a ramble.
No, that was good. Would you see perhaps
this is different media? We like to talk, to ramble a lot. Actually, we started doing a podcast. Now we have a camera, but we talk anyway, same way.
Basically the same. So would you think that would you do this kind of, I don't know, board game reviews if it weren't for the format of YouTube? You said like the format is important on how you deliver things. So if you had to write only about board games, do you think you would have done it, or what have you find your way? That's complicated. I don't know, perhaps.
Yeah, no, I like that question. That's really interesting.
And that wasn't on the list of questions that we sent. They just
surprise.
You can't tell them.
Sorry. Edit.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting because it's like I almost felt like writing about board games wasn't an option in a weird way. I guess making videos about board games is something that I didn't really consider like at uni, or like it's not a job that springs to mind.
No.
You know, like it's not typical.
Yeah, mother, I'm studying English literature because I want to. No.
I wanna get dressed as a rabbit and run around in a garden for a review of Bunny Kingdom. Like it's not
super,
a career
super
path I would
solid
wish upon
career
anyone.
path, yeah.
But yeah, I think like there are some people who are like Dan Thoreau and Charlie Thiel are these like they're fantastic writers in the board game space, but they just write so well.
Yeah.
And I think that I don't know if my videos would translate that well to being like transcribed into a block of text. I think I've accidentally found a really good home in video. I think it suits how I like to consume things, what I like to watch.
Yeah, absolutely. And I wouldn't think of Dan Thoreau, for instance, doing a video review.
Like you wouldn't picture Dan Thoreau in a bunny costume running around a garden for a Bunny Kingdom review, but
perhaps we can
maybe
ask.
you
Perhaps
would.
we can
Maybe
ask.
growing a bird for
Exactly.
Maybe we'll get him involved. Maybe he'll be up for it.
Interesting.
Okay, I don't know if you want to talk about the impact of the board game reviews to the audience and the buyers of
Exactly. There's this kind of internet meme about, okay, Sarama, sit down. There's a video. Okay, have you got your copy? Because it will be impossible now, right? Everything will be sold out. Actually, that's not a problem where we live in Spain because we follow different trends. So, but it has a lot of impact.
Yeah, it has.
It still has an impact.
Actually, I read today the description on the VGG page of Shut Up and Sit Down, and it was written by Queens, and it says that we'll make you spend a lot of money, guaranteed, and that's true.
That's true. They made me spend a lot of money when I was younger as well. So.
Now you're getting paid, so it kind of works backwards. So, how do you cope with this kind of reviewer responsibility? I mean, what I put in front of people, and if I say it's good, it will have an impact on the industry. If I say it's bad, also. So that's sort of.
Yeah, it's quite stressful. It's really nice to know that like my reviews or anyone on the team's reviews like have that much of an impact on people that they sort of trust your criticisms. But it also makes I think especially being positive about a game really daunting, because you don't want someone to go out and buy a game, spend their money, bring it to the table, learn it, put it in front of their friends, and then have a rubbish time. And I think that's something that has me second guessing my opinions all the time. And I think as well, like things get complicated when the people you're playing with can fundamentally change your experience of the game so much and muddy the waters. So it's a really like imperfect art getting it exactly right first time. But the way that I've sort of come to peace with it, because I initially was really worried about that. What if I review a game and it sells out and everyone hates it? What if I'm just completely wrong? But the best way to do that, I think, is just being really direct and honest with like your own opinions and own biases. And like I think that was with the Oath review. Like Oath is a game that is not for everyone. Like,
you were very clear about it.
Right. That's good. Because like a bunch of people super bounced off it, and I really wanted to make sure that people weren't going in thinking it was like a big fun war game. It's more like a weird, tangly storytelling economics puzzle. Yeah.
And actually, of course, Shut Up and Sit Down has made us spend a lot of money, but it has also saved us a little bit of money. I remember like, okay, so it's War of the Ring. Oh my God, there's a Shut Up and Sit Down review about War of the Ring. They're going to tell me to buy it because it will be the best thing. And it's like, watch out, perhaps it's not for you. And it's like, okay, I can cross that off. I can move on with my life.
Yes, it's especially good when the game would be really expensive as well. You want to make sure, you steer clear of a big box that's going to cost you an arm and a leg.
Okay, so talking a little bit more about this impact of the review, we interviewed another Tom Bernick, the founder of one of the founders of the Spiel des Jahres. So he talked about doing a super short version of the thesis of the speech of Tom Bernick, but he told us that he found that there is a correlation between good journalism and good reviews and good criticism about board games and the board game quality.
Sure.
So, what do you think about that? What do you think about having, I don't know,
a responsibility about the quality of the board games in general? You can push, right? That
so, do you think that superficial reviews lead to superficial board games?
I think that I'm really glad that we don't take paid previews because I think or paid reviews, because it means that, we make sure that everything's really like clear and direct and the audience can sort of trust us. And I do think that it's important to like maintain a level of like quality of your journalism when it comes to this stuff and like investigate. Like now we're in a position where we have a level of sway over the industry where if there are things that we find frustrating, we can try and like very, very slowly change the culture and get those things shifted. Like I'm really glad to see that some big Kickstarter publishers aren't just doing just plastic now. And a tiny part of me thinks, well, maybe because we've chipped at it over time,
I think so as well.
There's time to think about that. But I think, like there's definitely like having a good review of a good game is it's a joy to read, and it's a joy for the publisher, it's a joy for everyone. So I always think that it's worth putting in that effort, making something, a little bit more interesting for the reader, I guess, or viewer.
Yeah.
And actually about this, or perhaps about related to the style, going back to the style, there was another tweet of yours actually answering, I believe it was Michael Burns, about the, I don't know how to pronounce, sorry, his surname, sorry. But
I think that's right.
Okay. So the idea was, actually I read his tweet first, and it was like, okay, if you want to do a review, you don't need to do this, and this. And it's like, you don't want to go over components, or you don't want to go about this, or use this kind of use the phrases, all these kind of things. And I was like, yeah, I kind of agree with his point of view. And then you came and it's like, okay, can we have everyone that wants his own style or anything like that? Was like, yeah, I like Tom's version better. Yeah. So your style is very, very particular. So are there infinite possibilities of doing reviews? How do you feel about these do's and don'ts? And did you receive any by the Shut Up and Sit Down team?
Yeah, I think I really don't like that thread from Michael, because I think it's very like, it's very restrictive and it's very academic, and it's this set of regulations that I don't think it's not internally consistent, and it doesn't make sense on its own. It doesn't make sense with the work of its writer, and it's like condescending to someone trying to get into the hobby. And I agree with you that I don't even think that the advice is like necessarily completely terrible. Like I agree that in general some of those points are probably a little bit true, but it's written in this really like vile, snarky manner that really grosses me out. But I don't think there are any rules. Like, try your best to make something that you want to read or want to watch. Quinn's and Matt's advice to me was mostly practical, right? It was like, try to lay out your thoughts well, do it in a way that's fun, change the camera angles to keep things interesting, and just don't overthink it. And like, reframing that list as things you should do, I think is much more encouraging and positive, and it leads to better writing than this like very arbitrary list of things that are sort of just what his own taste in reviews are. I always think that, I got frustrated at uni with like the way that academic writing was always laid out. I always found it to be a bit ridiculous. And I wanted to, when you're writing a piece, you're addressing it to the reader, you're addressing it to the viewer, you're addressing it to somebody. And academic writing is done in this way that's very detached and very, I don't know,
these kind of limitations to how you do things. But sometimes it's a good rule of thumb, right? To have this kind of, okay, I won't use, for instance, the word fun, which is like, of course, kind of strange in board game reviews. If I see myself using that, perhaps it's something that I need to correct, or some tricks of that nature, right?
Yeah, there are definitely some things where, but I think that those things should always come from a point of internally thinking about whether you're happy with your use of that, or whether you've done it in a way that is like interesting. And it comes from this like introspection about your like creative work. But I think that like saying you should never use the word fun in a board game review is pointless, because you could use, you could use the word fun in a really fun and interesting way. And I think that if you strip out, if you have all these rules and regulations, you create work that's like very, it's functional, but I don't think it will ever like really get someone, it won't ever touch someone uniquely. It won't ever make someone sort of think about the media in a different way. And like sometimes you got to do things that are a little bit, like trashy, a little bit like looked down on to have the most effect.
So perhaps before going into the final part of the interview, do you wanted to ask him about how he structured the reviews?
So your process is like, okay, I get the game. I don't know. I have an idea what do I want to say, or do you want to play it first and with open-minded? Then do you have a script? Any process for the super success?
You play
video?
differently. You play differently.
You want the secrets?
If you are preparing a review.
The board game, you mean? You play
Yeah.
different the board game. Yeah. That's a good question as well.
Yeah. Normally the structure of like getting myself ready for a review is like, you know, you work out whether it's worthy of like a video review, because it takes so much time and effort. So you want to make sure that you're really like sure of yourself when you're going into making one of them. And then normally like writing the review goes either like one of two ways. Either it's a process where you play the game and the game has sort of like some funny elements to it, which means that writing jokes is really easy and the review just comes out in one go. Or it's a game that's like really quite dry and like, you know, economic, and it's a big Euro game, and you're like, oh, how am I going to make this entertaining? And that normally comes with you write a really boring script and then you just ram it with jokes. Afterwards, you just, everywhere you can, you put things in. I wish I could give advice as to how you should structure these things to anyone who like might want to make one, but it's really hard.
Yeah.
It's really hard having those hard and fast rules. I think that might have been, going back to that thread, I think that's why I found that thread frustrating, because it doesn't align with my experience. It's not like, if you don't do these things and you do these things, you'll write a good review. It's like, it's nebulous and it's tricky, and there's, you know, you've got to work out how it, you know, interacts with your own way of making things.
And if you got a board game, of course you can always explain the rules or explain how kind of it makes you feel or the interesting decision points, things like that. But usually, and in Sapas, you try to bring the conversation a little bit higher and say something interesting about the game, how it makes you feel, or something like that.
Yeah.
What about a game that actually tells nothing or tells you nothing, or because there are
That's
some
the
of
hardest
those. It's
ones
like,
to write.
Okay, that's pretty dry, and it's like, okay, so I just a lot of jokes. That's your answer.
Yeah, I guess it's always so hard when you have a game that is just really good. Like when someone puts a game in front of you, and like I think I wrote the review for Renature, and I had to make that interesting somehow, because the problem with writing that review was like, this game is just great, it's just really solid, but it's not like, you know, there's no like big twist or exciting moment. It's just a really good game. And that's always a weird challenge. But then I think if a game makes you feel like nothing at all, if it's just like, that was fine, it was good, then, you know, it's not worth people's money, or it's not worth the review. I mean, maybe it would be if you're looking. We always think about things that are, you know, we're always worried about potentially our tastes becoming too detached from like people getting into board games, because there's a whole thing in games where you're always looking for something new, you're always looking for something that's going to excite you. And when you play a game every day or whatever, you're getting to a point where, you know, you need to be impressed by something that's really weird. But that, you know, that doesn't mean that the game that is very simple and very direct doesn't have a purpose. It's just not for us. Or it might not be something that we cover as much.
So any particular genre or type of game that you are now more leaning into? I don't know.
Oh, that's interesting.
There's this transition of like Eurogamer, Wargamer, and then just playing Blood Bowl. Have you seen that trend in any of your friends? Because I've seen it a lot. I don't know about you.
I've seen that happen, but it's that step up, but it goes into like 18xx games. So they start with Euro games and they could just go hard into trains. But at the moment, I really like deck builders at the moment. I've been playing a lot of Undaunted, and I really love the way that game has the deck building element and the sort of like, you know, the wargamey element. And I'm finally getting to a point where, so Quinns is really, really great at head-to-head 2-player games. And whenever I play them with him, I just get, you know, demolished every time. He just wipes the floor with me. So
no Netrunner with Quinns.
Right. Well, maybe. That's a teaser. But
okay. Let's.
But Quinns will just like demolish me at these 2-player games. But now I'm starting to get a little bit better, so I'm starting to enjoy those games a bit more and going, oh, this is a genre that I'm a bit more into. When you're not just losing constantly.
Yeah.
But yeah, like I mean, games wise, you know, our sort of English compatriots, MPI. They were so, no pun included, they were so positive about For Science. They gave it their Game of the Year recently, and that's one I really want to try. And there's the new chip theory game coming out, Burn Cycle, which I think should be really interesting. Oh yeah, and Undaunted, the Stalingrad
because you're
Undaunted,
into
which is coming out soon.
Mhm.
I'm really excited for that. I literally can't wait to get a copy of that to the
Great,
table.
great.
Okay, so I think we don't want to steal more of your time. So, are you ready for a quick question roundup?
Yeah, how should we call it? Because it's like, I remember in Ludology, the podcast, they say like lightning round, but that feels like super American. So for you, it would be like this a rapid quiz of questions. And so how do we do that?
Yeah, the rapid quiz of
Rapid
questions.
quiz of
No, I like
questions.
that.
Yeah, RQQ. Okay.
So, are you ready? So, the first one, video you feel most proud of?
I think the one I feel most proud of might be Oath, because it was this huge effort, and I love the shots of the game I got, the B-roll, and yeah, probably Oath. It took the longest.
Because of the effort, okay.
Yes, absolutely.
And then best moment with the Sarapa sit down team, because you've been through a pandemic, so
That's hard. We're all, like, honestly, it sounds really corny and cliche, but we're always making these like really great moments. Like yesterday, I played a different one. I played Unmatched, not Undaunted, with Quins, and we were just laughing the entire time. Like filming with Matt, every time I film with Matt, it's fantastic. Like always doing things. Matt's very good at getting you to like do a really silly thing like in public. Or maybe, even perhaps maybe my finest / most embarrassing moment, we'll roll that into this question, was running down Brighton seafront with a big stack of games in the Cthulhu Wars video. It's one of my first appearances on video, and I ran so far because Quins was in his flat and he was shooting out the window, so I couldn't even see him, and he was calling me being like, we need to take that again, you need to do it again. So I had to run back another time, getting knackered, and people were staring. Oh, it was awful. But is that a best
that's
moment?
the best
I don't
moment.
know.
Okay, you picked.
Maybe the
Have
weirdest.
they asked you again for that?
Okay. So next one, favorite card in Wavelength?
Ooh, I might be biased because we just made an expansion for the app. The app is amazing, by the way. Like I would be covering it even if we didn't do an expansion for it. It's fantastic. My favorite card in the base game of Wavelength is the one that is illegal to prohibited. I think it's like a really interesting little thing. Like it's just a little bit illegal. I like that one. And the favorite one that we did is really, I think it's really simple. It's just underrated vegetable to overrated vegetable. But people just have such strong opinions about these things straight away. It's fantastic.
Okay, next question. Any favorite designer? I know it's a tough one. So.
That's tough.
At the that's hard. That's really hard. The boring answers are like, I've never not enjoyed. I've always enjoyed Reiner Knizia games and Uwe Rosenberg games, but those are like boring. So
it's like the Beatles, right? So it's like saying
yes, it's Cole Worley designed my favorite game of all time, so he's got to be up there. But I really like Ryan Courtney as well, of Pipeline and Curious Cargo. And at PAX, we tried a little demo of his next one, and it's fantastic. I'm really excited to see that. So he's definitely high up on the list at the moment. Yeah, that's probably a little good crop.
Perfect.
A video response you were most surprised about?
So that's for the comments, right? Or,
yeah, the comments.
Okay, so the comments section.
Comments. I was surprised that people like Renature so much because I was really worried about that one going out, and people really liked the slight change in pace for that one. And I'm really surprised at how many people picked up 1,000-Year-Old Vampire. I thought like not many people would get it after the review, but like you guys got a copy for your friend, and like a bunch of people went and got it, and that was super surprising seeing loads of people buy that. And the thing that was really surprising about that as well was that was in the middle of sort of like the heat of the Black Lives Matter movement, and Tim Hutchings, the creator of 1,000-Year-Old Vampire, like donated a huge amount of his sales revenue to that cause at the time, and it was just that felt crazy. That kind of response coming out of a video, like you cover something and then the money goes to a good cause. That was great. That was
Nice.
maybe the most surprising thing so far.
Okay, great. And then the last one, and perhaps the hardest one, is what's your favorite Steely Dan song?
That's too hard. That's too hard a question. That's unfair. The answer is always changing. At the moment, I mean, the classics. There's a song called "The Caves of Ultimaria," a song called "Peg." They're fantastic every time. But here's what really makes me sound like a snob. My favorite ever Steely Dan song is one that doesn't really exist, there's this lost tape
Oh,
for a song
Oh.
called it's a song called The Second Arrangement, and
Mhm.
it was like erased by a studio engineer, so the only thing that exists is like this grainy, rubbish, crappy demo for the song.
Okay.
But then people have been like remastering it or like making versions of it of what they think it would sound like, and it's amazing. It's so good. So I'm really annoyed it never got released.
Okay. Can it be found anywhere? Somewhere, right?
Yeah, you can find it on YouTube. You
YouTube.
can find but it's really funny when you listen to it because the instrumentals sound fine, and then as soon as he starts singing, it just sounds terrible. Like it's really
cursed.
awful.
Yeah.
It's really cursed. It's completely fried. But it's a great song.
Yeah.
You listen to it and you imagine what it could be like.
Interesting. It's like board games, right? Imagine what it will be the next
Can you
board game.
imagine?
Perfect.
Okay,
Well,
so
thanks a lot,
Thank
right?
you. Thank you so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you so much for having me. This was really good
Yeah,
fun.
it's been
Yeah.
a lot of fun. Yeah. The word that we can.
Yeah.
not
The
use
cursed
sometimes,
word.
Yeah.
Perfect, Tom. So thanks a lot. And as we said, if you ever come by Spain or we are located in Valencia anytime, just you know how to contact us. So
Of
Yeah.
course. Yeah, that would be great.
perfect. So see you around. Thanks a lot for your time.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much.
So-
That was really good fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bye.
Bye.
Cool.
Okay.
Thank you. Bye.
Ai, ja està, ja l'hem entrevistat. Què tal? És com un amic.
Es que
Vull dir que se fa proper.
es molt bonico. Es que Tom és molt bonico. I és molt màquina. És molt màquina. És que, a banda, inclús la manera en la que té... Sobretot és un tio reflexiu.
Sí.
Sobretot és un tio que s'ho...
Bueno, tots en Sara Panxeta crec que se nota que
Sí, evidentment, sí. Però a banda que...
pensen més enllà.
Sí, pensen més enllà, reflexionen i ja veus, o sea, que no tenia experiència en fer vídeos, però d'alguna manera, clar, com consumís
Tots
YouTube...
tenim sempre un amic, no? De
Sí, això està bé, sí, sempre tindrà algú que t'ajuda i que te tal. És que a banda i està... Clar, és que
despenta.
li arriba la pandèmia i estigues soles, claro, és que...
Claro. En plan de... ¿Has de fer un vídeo? ¿Has
Ale,
de
ale.
fer-ho ja?
No sé, bueno, tu com t'has sentit?
Molt còmoda.
I tant?
Sí.
A banda, este parlava brit, que a tu t'agrada més. Perhaps you fancy this accent a little bit more. La veritat és que jo també m'he sentit molt còmode.
Sí.
I no res.
Bueno, hem parlat de moltes coses interessants.
Sí, no sé.
De com és
Jo
tot
crec
el
que
procés. De...
hem tocat un poquet tot el que volíem. Si volíeu que li preguntàvem alguna cosa, pues ho sent, ja ho hem fet.
Exacte, ja li ho hem preguntat. Podem fer part 2.
Ojo, cuidado. No, res, així que molt bé. Ja te deia, per mi és drop the mic, ja deia, hasta luego. Sé, volem fer més coses, però personalment també entrevistar a Tom, és que a banda de tots, de tot l'equip, és que Tom és que és el meu favorit. És que és el meu
Que
favorit.
difícil de dir,
És el meu favorit. És que me cau molt bé i ho fa superbé. Ja que mira, estic supercontent.
Sí,
Pagat,
sí,
pagat.
estem molt contents. I el proper vídeo serà un vídeo normal. Vull dir,
Sí, per favor.
en català,
Sí.
100%.
Parlem en valencià, sense interviews, jo crec, no?
Sí, sí.
Per això fem uno ja i ja està, no? Que, lo que deia l'altre vídeo, que ja no ens parlarem de xocs. Doncs això, si us ha agradat, doncs no res, deixeu-nos un comentari, que això sempre ens fa molt d'il·lusió, vale? Sabeu que podeu subscriure-vos si us interessa més contingut d'aquest estil, i no res, doncs al canal ja sabeu el que més o menys el que tenim, no? Comentaris sobre jocs, sempre des d'un punt de vista també tractar de mantenir una barrera d'entrada fàcil, no? Als jocs, no complicar massa les coses, i no res, alguna entrevisteta com esta n'hem fet així que si voleu podeu anar a mirar.
I si no sabeu qui és Tom Brewster, perquè no ho sabíeu, ara el conegueu un poc més, i si us agrada mirar reviews, aneu a les seues reviews i al seu canal. És veritat que va molt a pressa, diu molta informació en molt poc de temps, en moltes bromes per unitat de temps.
Sí, total.
Però
És molt bo.
però de veritat que te veus el vídeo, ho disfrutes i després sempre pots anar als comentaris que fa jo i dir esa és veritat, esa broma no l'havia vist.
Jo he dit que jo sé en YouTube rotllo a 1,5 o inclús 1,75.
O més,
¿vale?
Carles ho senta a velocitats.
I Tom el senta a 1 per... ja és prou. I la velocitat normal ja és prou per mi.
Sí.
Així que res. Bueno, pues jo crec que està superbé i ens veiem a la propera, no?
Exacte. Fins a la pròxima. Adeu, adeu.